Deck builders, one of my favorite genres out there. All the fun of card games without the frustration of playing against a human being dead set on tormenting you.
Alright, I get it!
So are there any good ones out right now? And is Slay the Spire still the best one? Yeah, it is. But there's actual competition now, and I think I'll talk about Slay the Spire first since it's kind of the industry standard when it comes to deck builders, also because I'll probably draw a lot of comparisons to it when talking about the other games. If you've played deck builders before, then you've probably already played it, or you've heard its praise about a million times, so if you want to skip ahead, video's timestamped. This game's a masterpiece. I don't know what else can be said about it that hasn't already been said before. 3 energy per turn, cards cost energy, kill the bad guys with your cards, use block cards to prevent damage. After fights, you add new cards to your deck, and get money to spend at the shop. Climb the floors, upgrade your cards at the campfires, or take a nap and heal up. Open chests, kill bosses, get crazy relics that change up the game. Remember when I said 3 energy per turn? I lied. You got a relic that gives you 4 per turn now. Ooh, baby. And now you found a card that gives you more energy. Ooh, and now you found a card that attacks once for every energy you have. And it's just like, oh. And that's it. It's a simple formula, but it's just so good. There's a reason practically every game I'll talk about follows this formula pretty closely. There's 4 characters to choose from, each with a different starting relic and a pool of cards exclusive to them. They each have their own gimmick that really sets them apart from one another. The defect creates orbs that float above them and give different effects like calling down lightning or automatically blocking. The Watcher changes between different forms that encourage defensive play or reckless aggression. The Silent has tons of poison effects and generates a lot of zero-cost daggers to be able to attack like 10 times in a turn. The Ironclad hits really hard. The total card pool is also massive, and you can find success with just about anything due to the devs' insistence on putting out tons of balance patches to try and make everything viable in some kind of deck. The quick starts to each run and the immediate power you have, combined with such a great sandbox of stuff to play with, means the game is engineered to be as addicting as possible. Save the best part for last, Steam Workshop support. Remember when I said the game has 4 characters? Lied again, you idiot. It has unlimited characters now. Different levels, enemies, characters, mechanics. Someone modded in online co-op into the game. I wasn't too excited when they announced Workshop support way back in the day, but after it came out, I was blown away by the quality of the mods people were making. Characters with hundreds of unique cards and relics for them alone, all with original art and balance on par with the original characters. Mod support might have been the greatest thing to happen to Slay the Spire. That's all I really have to say about it. If you like deck builders, play it. If you don't like deck builders, play it. The developers over at Megacrit literally just dropped a genre-defining game and dipped. I can only hope they're working on another game. Next up is Monster Train. This is one of the first deck builders to come out after Slay the Spire that had me as addicted as it did. You can already see the game's pretty different from Slay the Spire. Combat takes place in 3 rows of your train. Enemies come in from the bottom and slowly make their way to the top in order to destroy your pyre. If that happens, you lose the game. You can summon units and use spells to try and stop them, but each row of your train has limited space, and the positioning of your units is super important. It's cool that you aren't really controlling a single character here, and instead you're commanding an army of demons. That makes the whole game into a really genius blend of tower defense and deck building. You still add cards to your deck, progress through branching paths, and pick up upgrades and crazy relics that change how the game plays, but the structure of the gameplay makes it really unlike anything else in the genre. Another interesting change is that instead of choosing a character, you choose 2 clans before each run, a primary clan and a secondary clan. Your primary clan will decide your champion, which is a big unit that you kind of build your game plan around, and your secondary clan decides the cards that start in your deck. The cards that you add to your deck throughout the run will only be cards from whichever 2 clans you chose, so you need to come up with a game plan before each run. Each clan also has 2 different champions to choose from, and the best part is that each of these champions have a bunch of different ways that can be upgraded that drastically changes how they play. Picking a combination of clans is probably my favorite addition to the formula, and it adds a ludicrous amount of replayability. Bosses in the game also have variations that make their fights play out differently each time you fight them. One amazing addition is the ability to see which of these bosses you'll be fighting right at the start of a new run, so you can always know what you're going to be getting yourself into. It's a really smart way of preventing you from getting screwed over by the randomness of it. It got a DLC that'll run you about 12 bucks that adds a new clan, new final boss, and a bunch of new mechanics and modifiers for higher difficulties. I'd recommend picking it up if you enjoy the game, since it really does add a lot to the repeat playthroughs. Also, it has Steam Workshop support, so my opinion of the game automatically skyrockets. As of right now, it's a pretty recent addition, so there isn't a ton available, but people have already added new clans, quality of life features, and plenty more. The only serious negative to Monster Train for me has got to be the art style. It's got this free-to-play mobile game look to it that I never got used to, but aside from that, it's a fantastic game, well worth the money. Then we got Grfitlands, and if that art style looks familiar to you, that's because it's made by Clay, which means you should already be pulling out your wallet. Seriously, these guys just do not miss. Shank, Mark of the Ninja, Don't Starve, Oxygen not included. If these guys touch something, it turns to gold. Buy all of their games. This one kind of flew under the radar though. I saw a trailer for the game years ago and I immediately signed up for the newsletter and patiently waited for it to come out. And when it did, I immediately fell in love with it. It's probably one of the most ambitious deck builders out right now. Instead of having a single deck of cards that you add to and use to fight, Grfitlands has two separate decks that you manage separately, one for combat and one for negotiating. Negotiations and combat play out very differently, and you could fully specialize in talking your way out of everything or just murdering everyone in your way. I like to do a healthy mix of both. Another great change to the formula is that Grfitlands is actually a story-driven game. There's a separate roguelike mode though that's purely gameplay if you're into that, but each character you play as not only has their own exclusive mechanics and cards, they all have their own unique story, characters, encounters, and endings. The average runtime for a single playthrough is way longer than most games in the genre, which I really like actually. All the characters you come across on your run can also grow to love you or hate you depending on how you treat them or any of their friends. If you get a character to love you, you get a nice little boon to help you out on your run. This is where a lot of the negotiation comes into play, since murdering everyone you come across is going to make you a lot of enemies. Luckily, if you want to focus on combat, enemies will surrender when you get them low on health, and you can choose to let them go if you don't want a reputation as the local Grim Reaper. One small thing I really love is that locations, characters, and terminology of the world will be highlighted in dialogue, and you can hover over it to get a brief description. Pretty cool. I really love the combat and negotiating in this game. Negotiations are built around destroying your opponent's arguments using either diplomacy or intimidation. You can attack any of their arguments that circle around them or just attack their resolve directly. Combat works about how you'd expect, but the presentation of it all is top-notch. You can also bring buddies along to make your fights easier. You can convince people to help, hire mercenaries, or get yourself a robot dog. And yes, you can pet the dog. There's a crazy amount of stuff to unlock, tons of difficulty options, a bunch of different upgrades for each card, and the art's fantastic. Also, workshop support. Yep, we're 3 for 3 here. Like Monster Train, it's kind of a recent addition though, and the game's a bit underrated, so unfortunately there isn't a whole lot here at the moment. Buy this game though. Clay is incredible. Fights in Tight Spaces. Weird name, great game. This one really surprised me. I had never heard of it before and I ended up just seeing it during my bi-monthly search through the deck builder tag on Steam. It's a deck builder, but it plays a lot like a puzzle game. Enemies take their turn to get into position and attack you, then during your turn you get to attack them back or push them around so they end up attacking each other instead. You can also push people out of the map to instantly kill them. Instead of characters, you just unlock different decks to use, each with their own different theme. I like the Grappler deck the best, since it lets you throw people on the floor and stomp on them. It's got the standard formula of branching paths, getting cards after fights, and then upgrading them, but the position-based gameplay and the general style of the game are fantastic and really unique. The soundtrack is also just There's a good amount of enemy and level variety as well. Prisoners, biker gangs, ninjas, mobsters, they've all got different mechanics that really change up how you go about each fight. I'd really like the game to have some sort of Oracle Eye system though, like in Legends of Runeterra, where you can see the results of what you're going to do before you do it, since the amount of rules in play and the weird inconsistencies can get really confusing in the later levels. Like these guys with shields can't be damaged from the front because they block all your attacks, and it's like, did they block it though? Like, did they really block it, though? This one does not have Steam Workshop support, unfortunately, but it's still in early access at the time of making this, so they'll probably add in some kind of mod support down the line. All in all, the game is great. Hopefully it gets some free content updates once it leaves early access, since it's a bit light on content overall, but if you're into puzzle games, then I'd say it's definitely worth the asking price. As for stuff that's not out yet, there's really only 2 games that I want to talk about. First is Marvel's Midnight Suns. I'm not a Marvel guy, so it almost annoys me how great this game looks. Not much of a surprise though, since it's made by Firaxis. They made XCOM. This is a ridiculously ambitious blend of deck builder and an RPG. It's split into 2 halves, the mission-based combat and the Abbey, which is the hub area that you'll be spending time in between missions. In the Abbey, you get to hang out with characters, find secrets, customize the furniture, upgrade the facilities. You can build relationships with characters by hanging out with them, and that lets you unlock new moves and gear for them. The combat seems insanely fun. It's positioning based, and there's a lot of knocking people around in the environment, which I love. The environment itself is also interactable, and you can deal a lot of damage with one move if you've positioned yourself well enough. You choose 2 heroes to join you for each mission, and the cards you've obtained for them will be added to your deck for the fight. The devs have said there are hours of cinematics, and the game is dozens of hours long with plenty of replayability. They'll also be adding in more heroes and other content post-launch. Genuinely blown away by how excited I am for a Marvel game that isn't Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Last but definitely not least is Inscription. This is a game by Daniel Mullins, one of my favorite indie devs. All of his games are insanely creative, and Inscription is no exception. It's a really interesting blend of horror and deck building with a really crazy meta-narrative that you come to expect from his games. I was able to play it early, but I can't show any of my own footage. Trust me when I say this game is mind-blowing. It's absurdly addictive and pretty disturbing. It's set to come out very soon, so it'll probably be released by the time you're watching this, but I'm being purposefully vague about the game's details so I don't spoil any of it. Seriously, pick this game up and support this developer. He deserves it. Yeah, that's pretty much it for deck builders. No idea how to end this video though, so I might just end it really abruptly, like as a funny joke. I feel like that'd be kind of fun.